The following episode contains sensitive topic information that may not be appropriate for young listeners, as well as religious or other views that may not reflect those of the Sirens team.
Hello, everybody. Hey, Ryan. Hey, Lindsay.
How y'all doing?
Hello. Woohoo. Doing good. Doing good. I always get like when the little intro music plays, I always like I'm dancing to it. It's cool.
Like getting psyched up, like here we go.
Yeah. And today was the last day of school for the kids here, and so it's been an exciting week, a busy week, an exciting week. Hope everyone caught our last week's episode and then our subsequent videos and photos from the Kennedy Space Center that kind of we didn't plan that episode with that trip, but it kind of worked out. Kind of really worked out, and it was neat being there at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida and thinking about the episode and time and space and all that neat stuff and parallel dimensions and yeah. Anyway, this week we have something that has really shaken me up. I don't know about you guys, but listeners, we are bringing you frightful fairy tales and nursery rhymes. And I think the first time I ever knew, because I loved nursery rhymes as a kid, I had, all the nursery rhyme books and I memorized the nursery rhymes and all. And then I guess it's been about 3 or 4 months ago now. One of my coworkers was telling me, that somehow we got talking about children's games and stuff. And she's like, all those nursery rhymes like London Bridge is falling down and Ring Around the Rosie and all. She said, that's not like just play for fun. That they all have dark meanings behind them. And I was like, no. So she's like, yeah, you should do some research on that. She was telling me a little bit about it. And my brain went, ding, ding, ding. Podcast episode. Oh my God. Podcast episode. So it's taken us a while, but we finally got there. And I hadn't really researched until this week. And it was like, what? My childhood is ruined.
Oh, well.
So I took nursery rhymes, and Ron kind of did a hybrid of fairy tales and nursery rhymes, and Lindsay, you took fairy tales. So yeah, we'll just we'll see. I wasn't aware of all this. This is wild. Some wild stuff that I never knew. I thought these innocent little nursery rhymes were just like little children's games and blah blah blah. Anyway, get ready, listeners. It's going to be a fun ride. So we are going to actually turn it over to Ron and let him get us into this episode with some of his research. So I can't wait to hear, because we're just like listeners to the other hosts of the podcast. We're like a listener too. We don't get together and say, okay, so I'm going to do this, this, and this. We just wing it. We just research our topic, and then it's like we're hearing it for the first time too.
Right. Like I said, we just kind of say, okay, we kind of do say, okay, just so we don't step on each other. You take a certain thing, I take a certain thing, but nobody really knows the detail and the meat taters of what we're doing.
Meat and taters, I love it.
Taters, right? We're like, okay, you want to do this? And we're like, wow, that's going to be interesting because, that's like, and we're excited to hear what the other person come up with. So, yeah, it's cool. And I think that's one of the things that make the podcast stand out. Mm-hmm. Is it's not as rehearsed, and it's not quite as professional, but we're just like you guys out there in the listening world. We get excited about this stuff, and a lot of this stuff is news to us. So I'm sure some of the things that Lindsay and Rhonda says tonight is really going to blow my mind, because I know some of the things that I'm going to come up with, and some of this is just kind of like out there in a different perspective on some stuff. So it I was like, well, this is really neat. So hopefully you guys like it too. So.
Sure.
But I'm going to start off with, like I said, this comes from a website. It's basically How Stuff Works, and the website is opal.howstuffworks.com. And this is from their newsletter, 10 Fairy Tales That Are Way Darker Than You Realize as a Kid. It's by Patrick J. Kiger, Kiger. It was updated October 20th of 2021. And to kind of go back with it, kind of like we were saying, if you grew up watching classic Disney movies like Snow White, Seven Dwarfs, Cinderella, Little Golden Book version of Pinocchio, and we've all had that one.
Yeah.
You probably accustomed to thinking fairy tales as wholesome entertainment for young children. A lot of you guys are going to be shocked to learn that some of this stuff is really going to destroy some of your childhood. I'm going to go ahead and jump into it, like I said, and they do a really nice breakdown of how things work on basically pretty much any childhood fairy tale or character that you thought was really cool. Well, hold on, because we're about to change something. So the first thing I'm going to do is Cinderella. Everybody loves Cinderella, right?
Yeah.
Dress up like it, and for the most part, most of this stuff, like I said, to go back into the Brothers Grimm books, most of the stuff was written for adults, and it was super, super dark. And at that time, it wasn't really selling, so they had to tone it down. But they did still leave some of the dark parts in it to kind of keep it interesting. The children didn't understand, but only the adults with kind of like one of the minds that really like to think, like, that's kind of creepy. But kids are like, But I'm going to break it down, and I want to see what you guys think.
Okay.
So, like the 1950 Disney film Cinderella, like, we all know it depicts a beautiful young woman who's been virtually enslaved by her evil stepmother. And then she gets a chance at happiness when her fairy godmother intervenes. And the godmother transforms Cinderella's ragged dress that's been torn and dirty and just, she just looked really bad. And she made it into an elegant gown so that she can attend the royal ball and, of course, meet her Prince Charming, right? That's what everybody wants. Her magical reprieve only lasts until midnight, though. And, that's a good lesson. Things don't last forever. So, when the going's good, either save your money or take advantage of it or, but always prepare for the future. And once she flees, she leaves behind one of her glass slippers. The prince obviously finds it, goes looking for the mystery woman who's basically he's fell in love with. And then that's where her two evil stepsisters and her godmother step in, right? So, but their feet are too big, right? So this is where it kind of gets dark. So their feet are too big, and the shoe's just right for Cinderella. And then, of course, she ends up marrying the prince. But here's the dark side of that. The 1697 story by Charles Perrault, which ends with the stepsisters begging Cinderella for forgiveness, which she eventually accepts. But the 1812 Grimm version, which is Aspenputtel, Ascenputtel, is a lot more horrific, which is like, a more scary version of the 16th century version. The evil stepmother hands a knife to the eldest of her two daughters, tells her to cut her toe off. When you are a queen, you will never have to go on foot. So she tells her to cut her toe off so that her foot will fit into the slipper. So therefore, it fits, and the prince will think it's her, and so that he'll marry her, and she'll be princess, right?
You're right.
So the prince is foiled and rides off with her until two talking pigeons alert him to her blood-soaked shoe. Because we know Cinderella is friends with the animals, right? So they're going to try to help out the birds and all the things. So the younger stepdaughter then tries to fool him by cutting off her heel.
Oh, gosh.
So first she cuts her toe off, and then she cuts her heel off to make it fit in the glass slipper.
Gosh.
But the pigeons again tip the prince off. And ultimately, when he identifies the girl of his dreams, the two evil stepsisters attend a wedding hoping to curry the favor. But the pigeons blind them by plucking out their eyes.
What? I have never.
Those birds really hate them.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard this.
Those birds are like, it's on site.
So that is a little bit different version of our lovely Cinderella story.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if they let that part in there?
Yeah, I thought you guys, I'm like, yeah, they're really going to,
Oh gosh.
They're doing it.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
That is crazy.
So, hey, your feet don't slip. Hey, cut your toe off. Duh. You know,
Use your brain. Hello. Just
yeah,
get rid of
cut
it.
your toe off. Well, okay. Well, my toe, what about this? Well, okay, she's already cut her toe off, so just cut the back of your heel off, make it fit, trim it up. Yeah, they had some. But if you look at some of the poetry and stories, back in the day, a lot of them are really dark.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they're very famous, and a lot of them have been quoted after time and time, but a lot of the stuff that you read is just like really dark, especially coming out of that type of century.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I read Grimm's fairy tales. I need to go back
Right.
read some of those.
So like I said, that's pretty interesting. The next one I'm going to do is going to be Pinocchio.
Oh, okay.
Now, Pinocchio is a little bit different of a story, but it has a really good life lesson, I think. Because when you think back to 1940 Disney version of Pinocchio, you remember the puppet's nose growing to indicate that, of course, he fibs and tells some lies. He has a cute little buddy, Buddy, the cricket, Jiminy Cricket, who sings the movie's memorable song, When You Wish Upon a Star, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody loves that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're about to dig into this. So, sit back. You guys are going to learn some stuff. But Time magazine critic Richard Corliss notes the movie also taught moral lessons in the most useful way by scaring the poop out of little ones. The script emphasizes, for example, the dangers of running away from home and falling into the clutches of an evil adult. Mm-hmm. And as kidnapper, Stromboli tells Pinocchio, when you grow old, you'll make good firewood. Mm. So he runs away. He gets caught by a bad guy, and then ultimately at the end of the day, he is kindling, and people are making s'mores out of him later. So, be careful and don't do that.
Wait, that's what happens in the story? Like,
no, that's really what happened, because that's actually in the cartoon.
Oh, wow.
So, but a lot of people miss those parts. He says, when you grow old, you'll make good firewood. But the film's source material in 1883, sourced by Collodi, Collodi, is even more disturbing. When Pinocchio is teased about his wooden head by his cricket companion, the enraged puppet throws a hammer and kills him. So he kills Jiminy Cricket.
No.
Oh my God.
I never knew.
So obviously he can lie and fib, but he can't take a little rub in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he kills his buddy. So that's kind of an evil twist to that. So kids, don't run away from home. Don't talk to strangers.
Wow.
Because when we grew up, that's what they said. Don't talk with strangers. Mm-hmm. Don't get in the car with strange people. Guess what we do now? We're all over the internet talking to strangers, and now we're taking Ubers and taxis, and we're getting people to deliver our food to us that we're going to eat.
Yes.
They go to Walmart and get our food, and we never know exactly what's going to happen with it. Yeah. So they say, here's your candy, here's this and that, So now we get in the car with strangers, and we talk to complete strangers, and we just trust everybody.
Yeah, true.
It wasn't like that growing up. So that's a little bit of a different twist to Pinocchio.
Yeah, that gives a whole different meaning to words will never hurt you. I guess his words got him killed. Wow, I did not know that.
Ew. I can't believe he did Jiminy like that.
Yes.
Yeah, like I said, so he actually, he killed his little buddy because his buddy was picking on him. So don't bully.
Don't bully, right?
And don't kill your friends also.
Yeah, don't do that. That's evil.
Don't throw a hammer at your friends' heads.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
And then I've got a couple of lullabies, and I want you guys to think about, because we've all said them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine a mother, right, singing this verse, okay? Because I want you to think the nice version before I tell you something. And it's all about the twist on the words and the true meaning about what you're saying.
Okay.
So we're going to sing the Rockabye Baby first verse.
Okay.
Rockabye baby on the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall. and down will come baby, cradle and all. Now think of the meaning. There's a crib up at a tree, a baby.
Uh-huh.
The tree limb breaks, and the baby ultimately falls to his death.
R.I.P.
Wow. I always thought like
It's such a soothing song.
it is,
you know?
and I always thought about like a little, like almost like a swing bassinet that's tied to the tree and it's swaying in the wind and the baby's going to sleep.
And everybody gets a nice, they sing that also. And sorry, I know I can't sing, so you guys can keep listening. I didn't turn anybody off there. But I want you to think of the true meaning. Okay, so I'm going to say it again the way it's actually intended, right? Because if you listen to that verse, the way it is written, it will sound more like an evil version, right? So it'd be like, rock-a-bye baby on the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall. And down will come baby, cradle and all.
That is creepy.
Exactly, right? So I'm just saying it's the same words.
Oh my God.
But if you say it the way the words describe it, that's exactly what it's intended to be like.
Yeah. The baby's falling to its death. Gosh.
And we sing that to our kids, and it's just fortunate enough that they're not really old enough to understand.
Right. They pick up on
Is this guy going to throw me out of a tree? What is he talking about?
My question, I've got two questions. Number one, how did the baby get up there in the top of the tree anyways? Like, where's your mom? Are we okay? Second of all, the tune itself is like so quiet and soothing. They could have put any words to that tune.
Yeah.
At the lullaby, but they're going to make it as dark as possible. Okay. All right.
And I knew you would say something like that, so I've got something for you, Lindsay. It's good to know the people you're working with. So you said that you could pretty much make any verse sound good or bad, right? Which is kind of what I was trying to say. Okay, so listen to this. Check this out. You'll like this. Have you heard the song Inner Sandman?
Yeah.
Yes. Metallica.
Yeah.
Check this out. One of the chorus. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. And never mind the noise you heard.
Yep.
It's just a beast under your bed, in your closet, in your head. Right? Yeah. Now think, you've got a baby. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. And never mind that noise you heard. It's just the beast under your bed, in your closet, in your head. So you can make it as nice or as bad as you wanted to.
Yeah.
And I know I did horribly on the verses, so please, nobody sue me for that.
I love that.
I wanted to sound creepy, but when you said that, I was like, hey, and that voice come to my mind in that verse when I started singing the lullaby, and I was like, well, the coolest thing I remember as far as something like that was this. And I was like, hey, that works. And then I got to thinking, what would it sound like if somebody sung it like that lullaby?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's freaky.
Yeah.
That would work, yeah.
It would. So
I believe Metallica hasn't done that yet.
Sorry, Metallica. I liked your version. My version is horrible. But I just wanted to put a different twist, and maybe, hopefully some of you guys laughed and enjoyed it.
It does go to show you, though. Yeah, it is the way, like when you're not really paying attention to the words. Like if you have a song you like, it gets ingrained, the tune and everything, and you're not really thinking about the meaning of it.
Right.
So, interesting. I did come across that lullaby, and I might have a little bit more different details to share about it. Whenever you get you get through with yours. Are you
Oh,
done?
I'm pretty much done with mine. I
Okay.
just thought you guys would get a kick out of those
Yeah.
comparisons and how
Yeah,
they
that's
were
fun.
saying because
Now,
it's
every time I hear Sandman, Enter
That's what I'm
Sandman, I'm
gonna
going to
think
think
of
of that.
Yeah.
you're like Ryan has done ruined it. His voice is horrible.
My
All I
childhood's
know is
ruined. My favorite song
No.
is ruined. Let me see if I can find yeah. Okay, so to piggyback off of what Ron said, um, Rockabye Baby, the nursery rhyme originated as a song about a baby dying with the cradle representing a coffin and let's see, when the bough breaks, and the boughs referring to a tree from which a baby's cradle coffin would be hung. Okay, but there's another interpretation of it too.
Wait,
And
I'm
this
sorry.
interpretation, what?
What?
Yeah.
We're just hanging babies in coffins
I
on
have
trees?
no idea.
Damn.
Okay, and I'll tell y'all in a second where I got this. Another interpretation of the famous lullaby is that it's about the son of King James II of England and Mary of Modena. It is widely believed that the boy was not their son at all, but a child who was brought into the birthing room and passed off as their own in order to ensure a Roman Catholic heir to the throne. The rhyme is laced with connotations. The wind may be the Protestant forces blowing in from the Netherlands, the doomed cradle, the royal house of Stuart. The earliest recorded version of the words in print contained the ominous footnote that read, "This may serve as a warning to the proud and ambitious who climb so high that they generally fall at last." So they put another spin on it. And I got my sources are, there's a website called The Dark Side, ludwigvan.com, and it had all these surprisingly dark meanings of nursery rhymes. And then another was, surprisingly, the AussieChildCareNetwork.com. And then there was one more, Lethbridge. I don't know. We'll put these in the show
We'll
notes.
put them in the show notes. It's
Yeah, I'm
okay.
trying to
You
read
have
this, but
listen
it's not. It's not words. So we'll put them in the show notes. But they had more mysterious and dark origins of 10 classic nursery rhymes. So Ryan tackled a lot of the fairy tales, and so as I was looking, I was thinking, I used to sing all of these. Like I had this big yellow book with these beautifully colored pages of illustrations with these nursery rhymes in it, and it was one of my favorite books. Like I memorized all these nursery rhymes, and I just love looking at them and looking at the pictures. I wore that book out because I love rhymes. I love words, and I just love to write, and I love poetry and all that stuff. So I used to read and sing a lot of these as kids, but like Ryan said, we're going to find out they were not always intended to be said or sung to children. So Humpty Dumpty, who doesn't know Humpty Dumpty? All right, I had no idea Humpty Dumpty wasn't really an egg. Okay, listen about Humpty Dumpty. The nursery rhyme is pretty much accepted that it was about King Richard III, okay, who was killed in battle and his body left unburied for several days. Another interpretation is far from the whimsical egg-shaped character sitting on the wall, but it's borrowed straight from military history. As it turns out, Humpty Dumpty was a gigantic siege cannon. Royalists employed it during the English Civil War in 1648. They set the cannon up at the top of the St. Mary at the Walls church tower, where it remained until enemy forces blew up the building and Humpty took his infamous fall. That kind of blew my mind. I was like, wow, I can see that making sense.
Yeah, that's random.
Yeah.
Where did we get the egg from?
I have no idea.
Because I guess thought that it was an egg. It's not.
No. So
it doesn't.
I think in these, like 1500s, 1600s, a lot of the nursery rhymes that were written during those times were like allegorical, like they represented something that the people didn't want to say straight out, in case they got in trouble or whatever.
Shady.
Yeah.
Shady.
All right, Jack and Jill. Here we go. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch cold water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. Now listen to this. This nursery rhyme is thought to be a reference to King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, who were both executed during the French Revolution. So you get the king, Jack fell down, broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. Okay, so we've talked about Rockabye Baby. Who remembers this one? This is the one that gets me the most, y'all. Ring around the rosy, a pocket full of posies. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Okay, this nursery rhyme originated as a song about the bubonic plague. In the plague, a rash appeared on the skin, and the ring around the rosy was the ring that appeared around the red dots on the skin. Okay. Ashes, ashes, indicating the funeral pyres that burned the bodies of the dead, the smell from which they attempted to cover up with a pocket full of posies, which are flowers. And then, of course, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. It was such a dark time, and the plague was killing so many. I mean, it killed millions in medieval Europe. So we used to play that. I can remember playing that with my cousins, in a circle, and we were holding hands and going around in a circle. And then when it would get to ashes, ashes, we all fall down. We'd all just fall down. But that is so horrific what it's really about. And that just got me. That broke me.
If I was a ghost of one of those people and I saw somebody doing this,
yeah,
I would literally stand there with my arms crossed and be like, wow.
Yeah.
Really, guys? Wow.
Yeah.
The disrespect.
Unreal.
Unreal.
And no one realizes that these little innocent nursery rhymes are metaphors for death and destruction, right?
But they all are.
London Bridge is falling down. Here you go. Here's another one. This says it could be about a Viking attack in the year 1014, could be about child sacrifice, or it could be a normal deterioration of the old bridge. But the most popular theory seems to be the first one, more specifically the alleged destruction of London Bridge at the hands of Olaf II of Norway sometime in the early 1000s. So it's really about the bridge really being attacked and falling down, I guess. I can't say that word, deterioration.
Deterioration? Yes.
Yeah, that's a hard word. Okay, who remembers this one? Here we go around the mulberry bush. The mulberry bush. The mulberry bush. Here we go around the mulberry bush.
I don't remember that one.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Well, it's often sung as part of a children's game, but according to historian R.S. Duncan, a former governor of England's Wakefield prison, female inmates had to exercise around a mulberry tree in the prison yard. And that's what that song's about. Yeah.
So they just kind of made that one up themselves.
Yeah. Mary, Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? Who remembers that one? All right. It says that this poem first appeared in Tom Thumb's Pretty Songbook in 1744. Since that time, people have argued about who the Mary in the song was. The darkest interpretation contends that the rhyme refers to the Catholic monarch Mary I of England. She was known as Bloody Mary. They say the garden in the verse is England, and the contrariness mentioned in the song alludes to her bloody persecution of Protestants. As for the silver bells and cockle shells, they were torture devices used by the Queen's executioners on her prisoners, her Protestant subjects. How does your garden grow with silver bells and cockle shells and pretty maids all in a row? So she would line up the prisoners, and I guess they would use these torture devices on them if they
They
were
was good.
Protestants because she was Catholic. So a lot of these, if you
That's
notice
so
a
stupid.
theme here, you noticing a religious theme here.
Yeah, but
The
that's so
Catholics did
stupid.
like
It's like you both believe in Jesus. What?
they've been fighting about it. Yeah,
That's
So
right.
Jesus.
stupid.
They was
I
really
know.
good about speaking in code back in that day.
Yes, they
They was
were
telling you stuff without telling you stuff.
without telling
But
you.
back then, they might have kind of understood better. But like in today, they're like, "Oh no, they're just talking about mulberries." You know, it's
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
we've lost the meaning, but they
you would
knew.
never put
Yeah,
that together.
in historical times, they knew. Okay, here's another one: Georgie Porgy, pudding and pie. Kissed the girls and made them cry. When the boys came out to play, Georgie Porgy ran away. So most historians agree that this classic nursery rhyme is about Prince Regent George IV of Britain. Okay, this is kind of funny. Um, ridiculed for his hefty 50-inch waist and his weight, he had a reputation for lusting after food and women. And reportedly, he left a string of illegitimate children behind him. Hence the references to pudding and pie and making the girls cry. And see, when the boys came out to play, maybe the boys were like boyfriends and husbands getting ready to beat him up and got their women pregnant. I don't know. This is crazy.
That's so mean. That's so mean.
All right, here's one. Baba Black Sheep, have you in a world? Wool. Yes, sir, 3 bags full. Okay, so in the year 1272, Crusaders returned to England from the Holy Land. Along the way, they racked up quite a bill. So King Edward I imposed new taxes on Britain's wool industry to rake in extra revenue. These tax requirements were immortalized in the poem Baba Black Sheep because they refer to the allotment of bags of wool that they had to give, including even a master, even a higher lord. So he was taxing them in wool, okay? And it's when they didn't pay the fee of the wool, things got real bad for them. So it's not just about a pretty little sheep. Yeah. So we mentioned Jack and Jill once. Here's an even a third account of what it could be. So historians say that this poem could commemorate a love affair between an unmarried couple who regularly met on a hill for their romantic trysts. According to legend, Jill became pregnant, but Jack died just before the birth of the child. He either fell from the hill or got knocked in the head by a falling rock. And in turn, Jill died in childbirth, tumbling after her clandestine lover. Pop Goes the Weasel. Okay, y'all know that one. I used to have isn't that the tune they play for a Jack in the Box? Da 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 da. Okay, those scare me. By the way, I don't like Jack in the
Box. Who does?
Yeah.
Who's like, you know what I want for Christmas this year? I really want a Jack in the Box. Those are my favorite toy.
No,
everybody hates those things.
I don't like them. So, trying to make sense of the lyrics to Pop Goes the Weasel can prove challenging. That's because slang has changed dramatically over the centuries. Once upon a time, people called a winter coat a weasel, and the act of pawning something was known as popping. In other words, the song is really about making ends meet by pawning your winter coat, a bare necessity that you would need. So, yeah, that's kind of sad. That's more sad than scary, but
days were dark back then, you know.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Queen Mary I some more, okay? Three blind mice. See how they run. You remember that? And she got a butcher knife and cut off their tails and okay, here you go. So, this is another one of those in code poems. 3 blind mice refers to Queen Mary I's order to have 3 Protestant bishops viciously tortured, including blinding them, and burned at the stake. This violent episode is corroborated by the original version of the words, which includes this phrase: "She scraped off the entrails and licked the knife."
What?
Yeah, that was in the original poem. So
Who is writing these poems?
Lindsay or Ron, somebody Google three blind mice, because I'm three blind mice, see how they run, What's the next two lines? I should have written.
You mean Google it really fast?
I got you.
You got it?
Okay. It's not that long. I'll read it.
Okay.
Three blind mice, see how they run, They all ran after the farmer's wife. She cut off their tails with a carving knife. Did you ever see such a sight in your life as three blind mice? Three blind mice, see how they run, They all run after the farmer's wife. Three blind mice. I'm trying to see where it says that, but
it wouldn't say that now. It wouldn't say that now.
Okay, I'll find the original version.
The part, I guess, where it says, and I couldn't remember those two lines. They ran after the farmer's wife, and she cut off the farmer's wife. Yeah, tail with a butcher knife. Okay, yeah, so
that's the updated version. That's the tame version of it.
Yeah, the tame version. She scraped off the entrails and licked the knife. Come on, this. Ooh, talk about dark. This Queen Mary the First.
They really.
Yikes!
They really hated her back in the day.
They really did. And see, they couldn't say it like out loud the street, so they had these little rhymes that they made up, but people knew, like, okay. Y'all ready for Old Mother Hubbard? This was one of my favorite ones too. Old Mother Hubbard went to the cupboard to get her poor dog a bone, because I remember in my book there was a cute little dog and he was just sitting there looking and there was no bone. She didn't have anything in the cupboard. It was empty. So you might be surprised to learn that this rhyme has nothing to do with a matronly woman or a dog searching for a bone. Instead, Old Mother refers to Cardinal Wolsey, an English clergyman and close ally of King Henry VIII of England, and we all know about him. Wolsey attempted to ascertain an annulment for Henry from Henry's first wife, Catherine of Aragon, so the king could marry Anne Boleyn. Mm-hmm. But Wolsey found the cupboard, which was the Catholic Church, bare. Unable to secure the annulment for Henry VIII, Wolsey lost his status as the king's favorite. That's some weighty stuff right there for a children's nursery, you know. Yeah,
these people are creative.
They are, right?
Because I would never get that from that.
I know, we would never think
in a million years.
Here's another one: Ladybird, ladybird, fly away home. Google that one, Lindsay. Ladybird, ladybird, the classic nursery rhyme. Before I go into this, I want you to read the actual.
I don't think I know that one. Hold on.
I think it's something about ladybird, ladybird, fly away home. Something, and the kids are all gone.
Hold on.
It's pretty sad, even in the current.
Okay, it says, "Ladybird, ladybird, fly away home. Your house is on fire. Your children all gone, all but one, and her name is Anne. And she crept under the pudding pan."
Yes. Okay. Or in my book, it said the frying pan. Okay. Right. And in my book,
like really dark at first, and then it just gets really random. Like, what?
I know. Yeah, in my book, it was just like, you know,
it's really short. Yeah.
Okay, well, this children's classic remains a staple for small children, but the verses prove somewhat alarming, and with good reason. The rhyme states, "Ladybird, ladybird, fly away home. Your house is on fire." Oh, I should have just read ahead. "And your children are gone, all except one. Her name is Anne, for she has crept under the frying pan." While the words sound pretty kind of dark as is, the historical interpretation heaps on more layers of creepiness. You see, Ladybird was another name for the Virgin Mary, and by extension, the Catholics, right? During the English Reformation, they faced heavy penalties for practicing their Catholic religion, including torture and death. As a result, they often had to attend masses in secret and often outdoors, hence the "children are gone" reference. Moreover, the fire may allude to the Catholic priests mercilessly burned at the stake during that time.
Real quick, I found that verse
Okay.
for the three blind mice.
Okay.
It goes, three blind mice, Dame Julian, the miller and his merry old wife. She scraped her tripe, take, or in some versions, lick, thou knife. So that's where it came from.
Okay. Wow. So you see how they've changed over the years. Some of them, even the words, the meanings, of course, have changed because we don't know all that history and that. I mean, it was some bloody history back in those days, y'all.
Yeah.
I'm just like, that was the last one I had, and I was just like, I can't look up anymore. I didn't want to know. Like, I didn't want to ruin the other ones. But I was thinking about the Pied Piper. That one hit my brain like after I had stopped researching. I was like, that's got to be something dark right there. Mm-hmm. Did anybody research that?
I feel like I have listened to a podcast about it. I feel like maybe Aaron Mahnke did something about it on Lore.
Yeah.
And that it's based off of kind of a real situation where, you know, these towns would be overrun by rats, and so they would have like a specific person come in to kill the rats.
Yeah.
And then they would pay them, and then they would go on their way. But I think in this case, it's maybe based off of a situation where the town refused to pay the guy. Or maybe this was like in the story that they refused to pay him, and so he was like, all right, bet. So he went and got his little flute, and he started playing the flute, and he stole all their kids out of the town.
Yeah. Huh.
He was like, well, I'm taking something, so.
I'm seeing what I can find says that the story is likely based on an actual historical incident.
Yeah.
Says it played out in the Germanic town of Hamelin, now called Hameln. In the year 1284, the town had been suffering from a severe rat infestation when a man arrived carrying a musical pipe and wearing pied or multicolored clothing. So it wasn't that he made pies, it was that's what they called multicolored clothing.
You thought he just brought pies in and played the pipe?
I did.
You're like, man, this guy sounds great.
He promised the mayor to rid the town of its rats in exchange for a fee. But the kids that followed him, when the town refused payment for his services, the Pied Piper supposedly led away 130 children and disappeared with them in the mountains. Oh, that's kind of...
They probably thought he made pies too.
They probably did.
They're probably like, hell yeah, I'm about to get some apple pie from this man.
Yeah, and he plays good music. He seems friendly. He's not a stranger.
But you would think in between them, the 130 of them, they would put it together like, maybe we shouldn't go out of the town with this man up into this mountain.
Right. It was like maybe he hypnotized them or something with his music, kind of like
hypnotic music,
like a snake. Yeah, like
and they were all like zombies.
Because the rats in the story, when he played that, they all followed him down to the river, and then they drowned in the river. But then when they wouldn't pay him, he led the children out. So by children, I mean,
instead of kidnapping all those kids, it would have been even cooler if he played like the reverse tune of what he just did, and all the dead mice came back to life. The town like was overrun with zombie mice. That would have been a better ending.
There's a movie, somebody out there, just saying. Well, Lindsay, what do you have? I know you've got some fairy tale stuff for us.
I have a couple. Mine, I don't think mine are super dark, but one of them I picked because it is a little bit darker, and we might have already talked about it a little bit because it is The Little Mermaid, and I think we mentioned it in our episode about Sirens. What are they really? Sirens. Which I think is episode 4 of this season. So if you want to go back and listen to that one, it was a good one.
Yeah.
So this is very different from the Disney movie, The Little Mermaid.
Okay.
This wasn't the Grimm brothers. I have one from them after, but this one's from Hans Christian Andersen, and this was from 1837.
Oh, hold on. I didn't realize that. I thought that the Little Mermaid was like a current story, like that Disney wrote. I don't know why.
No. Theirs is based off of this one,
Okay.
but this one was back in 1837, and it came straight from his mind. Like, you know how a lot of fairy tales are based off of folklore and legends that the Grimm brothers especially went around and collected, and then they put all the stories together. This one's unique in that it just came straight from Hans Christian Andersen's mind. It was influenced by the culture of like merfolk and water nymphs, but for the most part, the storyline, he just wrote it down. Just wrote it. So, in this storyline is a little bit different because in Disney's version, Ariel's motivated by love. You know, she sees the human and she falls in love with him and she wants to go up on land and be with him, blah, blah, blah. This one's different because in this story, mermaids only live to be like 300 years old. They don't have a soul. So once they die, that's just it. So she doesn't have a name, by the way. She's just known as the Little Mermaid. She's not named Ariel in this one. It's just the Little Mermaid.
Okay.
So she's motivated by her desire to achieve an immortal soul. Because I guess she's talking to somebody in her family, maybe her grandmother, and was asking about humans and about souls because she was curious about it. And the grandma was like, no, humans don't live as long as we do, but they have an immortal soul, so they're kind of immortal in that way. So that's what's motivating her in this story. She wants to get a soul. She wants to live forever. So she does end up saving a drowning prince from a shipwreck. So that's the same. And she realizes that the love of a human might let her achieve that immortal soul. Like if she can love somebody and they can love her back, then maybe she can have that soul, right? So she wants to go on land, but she's a mermaid. So she has to go visit the sea witch to get legs, just like in the movie.
Okay.
But this version, I mean, it doesn't really talk a lot about what the sea witch looks like, I think. There's no great soundtrack. It's just she goes and visits her and she's like, okay, I can do that for you, but I'm going to cut your tongue out and then you'll get legs. But here's the deal. Each step with your new legs is going to be so painful. It's going to feel like you're being stabbed by knives all the time as you're using your new legs. And also you have 3 days to make this work. And if it doesn't, you're just going to die. You're going to dissolve into sea foam. So good luck. So then she cuts her tongue out and she gives her legs. And so the Little Mermaid's like swimming and trying to get to the surface. So she makes it to the surface. And so I think passes out and the prince finds her and takes her back and is like taking care of her, but he ends up falling in love with somebody else.
What?
I mean, it happens.
After all that?
After all that. But I mean, so he ends up falling in love with somebody else. So he wants to marry her. And so Ariel's upset. She's like crying. Well, here come all the rest of her sisters. And I guess she's like over by the sea and they swim up and they hand her this knife because they have given the sea witch their long, beautiful hair in exchange for this knife. And they're like, hey, if you kill him and get his blood on your feet, and also maybe the blood of whatever girly he's got, if you get their blood on your feet, then you'll change back into a mermaid and you won't die. And she's like, okay, I'll do it.
Wow.
Like, you know what? That's a great idea. If I can have him, nobody can have him. I'm going to go do this really fast. So she takes the knife and she goes and she's like about to kill him, but she can't do it. She can't bring herself to do it. And so she is like, she's accepting her fate that she's going to dissolve into sea foam and she goes to jump into the ocean. But she's rewarded for not being a murderer. And so somewhere between her jumping off of the balcony into the ocean, she just joins this metaphorical paradise of the women of the air. So, AKA, she goes to heaven and she now has a soul because she's not a murderer.
Wow. That is dark. I was still stuck on she cut her tongue out. Why? And then now she got to kill somebody else. Yeah, this is crazy.
But my favorite part is that they're like, hey,
If
go do this. And she's like, okay, I'll do it. She's not even like
thinking about it.
I don't think I should. She's like, all right, give me the knife. I'll go do it. But she doesn't end up going through with it. But I just thought that part was kind of funny. She's like, okay.
Yeah, it's in this rage. She's just like so frustrated and upset. She goes, yeah, I'll kill him. Give me that knife.
She's like, I'll show him. I'll show this man.
But how does she talk without a tongue?
Oh, I was ad-libbing that. Ryan. That was just me ad-libbing.
That's great.
In the real book, she said, okay, yeah, I'll do it. But in my
brain,
she did that. Yeah.
She just agreed. I thought you were going to say she jumped off the balcony and a shark swallowed her or something like that.
And she what?
And a shark swallowed her.
Oh my
God. The way her luck was going, you know. She jumps off the balcony and because she paused right there and that's what I thought. A shark got her, bam.
No, so I mean it doesn't have a really like it could have been a lot darker. She could have gone and murdered him and then transformed back into a mermaid and became a sea witch herself, which might have been more of an interesting story. But anyways, so she didn't do that. But it's also like she didn't really get her happy ending the same as the movie. I mean, I guess she achieved what she wanted the whole time, which was getting a soul. So I guess because there's always a moral of the story. And it's not really stated, but I guess the moral of this story is, hey, if you want to keep your soul, maybe don't kill people. That's what I'm taking from it.
Or maybe don't go make deals with witches because there's always a catch.
Yes.
Maybe.
But, it didn't turn out bad. I mean, going to heaven's not a bad thing. So, if you do make it there, I mean, that's always a plus.
Yeah.
Right? So, but that is a very creepy story. And like Rhonda said, asking, okay, I'll do it. My hand gestures,
Thank God they didn't put that version into.
That would be a great movie, though. I can see that one coming out.
You can.
I mean, they could do a remake of the original Little Mermaid, and I guarantee you it would be a lot darker and spookier. People would go see it.
Yeah, they would. Yeah, I would.
You know, probably wouldn't be a musical, but I'd go see it.
Yeah, probably would.
It could be a musical. They could
they could just put that Rockabye Baby lullaby in there, Okay. I watched that movie Pumpkinhead just to say. Okay, I just had to say.
I still haven't.
Off of what Ryan said, don't make deals with witches because there's always a catch. Yeah, that's all I'm saying about that. It's Whew, pretty bad catch.
So I only have one other story, but I wanted to pick this one because to me, I remember hearing this as a kid, and it was always the most random, out there fairy tale that I knew, and that is Rumpelstiltskin.
I love that. That's my favorite one.
It's just so.
It is so random.
Okay,
I love the little guy, and he throws his temper tantrums, and I just couldn't relate to that.
Oh no, you never you can relate to that. So I'm gonna go through the story. This is by the Brothers Grimm, and it dates back. Well, the original story that they found and based it off of dates back to like the 16th century. Okay. But in their book, when they compiled everything, of course, it came out in 1812. So this not too far before The Little Mermaid, kind of in the same fairy tale era. But so I'm going to go through the story for you guys, just kind of from my brain. Okay. Now, this isn't, when I tell you this story, this is not how it's written, and you'll be able to know that because obviously it's not in the 1812 language. But this is, as I was reading it, this is how I saw it. Okay. So at the beginning of the story, you have the miller and his daughter. So the dad's like, he goes to the king and he's like, hey, my kid can spin straw into gold. Why does he do this? Why? That's the only thing I can think of. Is like, why is this guy, why are you going to brag like that? You're going to put your kid in that situation. You know, the king's going to be like, all right, let's see it, you know?
Yeah.
So the king's like, okay, cool, bet. Give me your daughter. I'm going to take her to this room filled with straw. And then he tells her, he's like, if you don't spin every single little piece of this straw into gold by morning, you're done. I'm going to kill you. Like, why? What?
Well, we've already established that they were kind of mean and brutal and vicious back then.
So she's like sitting in the room. She's like crying. She's upset. She's like, damn, why is my dad like this? Why did he do me like this? Why did he do this to me? Obviously, I can't spin this straw into gold. It's not happening. She's like crying. She's really upset. Poof, here comes this little man. And it describes him as like an imp. So he's this little guy, right? And he's like, what's up, girl? Why are you crying? What's the matter with you? And also, what is going on with all this straw? And she's like, she explains and she's like, my dad told the king that I could do this. Obviously, I can't do this. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't want to die. And he's like, okay, no problem. Give me your necklace and I'll do it. And she's like, okay, here's my necklace. And he starts spinning and all this gold starts coming out. And she's like, oh, thank God. So the king opens the door in the morning and he's like, oh my God, sick. But I'm going to take you to another room just to really make sure that you got this. Okay. So he takes her to an even bigger room that's filled with even more straw. And she's like, damn it. I thought one night would be enough. What? Why do I have to do this again? And he's like, well, you're going to have to figure it out. Because if not, if I come back here in the morning and there's even one little piece of straw left, I'm going to kill you. Closes the door. She's like, oh my God, again? Why are we doing this again? And she's like crying. And then poof, here comes this little man again. She's like, oh, thank God. And he's like, are we doing this again? Are you serious? And she's like, yeah, I don't know why I'm in this situation. He's like, it's not a problem. Just give me your ring and we'll make it happen. So she's like, okay, thank God. So she gives him the ring. He does it. We're good. Okay. So the next morning, the king comes in and he's like, oh my God, again? Girl, you're killing it, but let's do this one more time. Okay. So
this is the funniest version of this story I've ever heard. I just gotta say.
He takes her to another room, even bigger, a bunch more straw in there than the last 2 nights. Which, by the way, this is consecutive nights. Okay, we're not taking breaks in between. Homegirl has not got a full night's sleep. She's not taking a shower. She's probably smelly and hungry. They didn't bring her food.
Yeah,
It didn't say anything about that. Do you know how mad I would be? Okay, I'd be like, I'm about to kill this king myself. Let's just get it over with. Anyways. So she's like crying again. She's really upset. So here comes this little man again. And he's like, again? What are we going to do? You don't have any jewelry left? I know what to do in this situation. He's like, you don't have anything you can give me now, but I'll just take your firstborn kid when you get there years down the road. And she's like, you know, I really don't want to die, so I guess that's fine. So he's like, perfect. So he like weaves spins it all into gold. The king comes back the next day. Okay, let me turn the page because I have this all written down. The king comes back in the morning, and then all of a sudden he's like, oh my gosh, okay, I'll marry you. All right, you convinced me. Where is this coming from? Okay, because this wasn't even a thing before, right? He's like, if you don't make this straw into gold, I'm gonna kill you. And now all of a sudden he's like, 3rd time's a charm. That's my wife. Get over here. We're getting married. What? This story is so random.
It is.
So obviously he's like, well, she's done all this and giving me all this gold, so I can't let her go now, because what if I go broke down the road? How am I going to get more gold? I'm not going to be able to find her again, so I'll just marry her. That way she's always on hand, you know, in case we need more money. So they get married. This poor girl, by the way, because, okay, you just wanted to kill me and now we're getting married.
Yeah.
Cool. So they get married, she has a kid, and boom, who comes into the room? He's like, hey girl, guess who it is? And she's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? And she's like, no. She's like, please don't take my kid. Have all of this money, have anything you want. He's like, bitch, I can make gold on my own. I don't need that. I said what I said and that's what I want. He's like, give me your kid. And so she's like, please don't take my baby. Please don't take my baby. And he's like, okay, what if we do this? I'll give you 3 days to guess my name. And if you don't guess my name, I'm taking your kid. She's like, okay, let's do it. Because she doesn't have a choice, okay? So he comes back. She's guessing the names. She can't get it right. She's like guessing. At first she started guessing like normal names. And then she starts getting more obscure with it. And nothing is right. The second day he comes back and she's still guessing names. And he's like, nope, you're really bad at this game. That baby's going to be mine tomorrow. So she goes out that night, and I guess she went out with the objective to either find him and like beg for him not to take her kid, or to like ask somebody, hey, have you heard of this little tiny creepy man? What is his name? So she comes upon this little cabin in the woods, right? And there's a really cool little fire pit going outside. You know, he's probably out there about to get some s'mores on. Okay. He's out there dancing, right? He's having a good old time. It's like the middle of the night. And he's out there singing and dancing. And he goes, and there's a lot of different versions of this, right? There's a lot of different versions of this little song. But basically, he's like, tonight, my plans I make. Tomorrow, the baby I take. The queen will never win the game, for Rumpelstiltskin is my name. So you have to think to yourself, like, first of all, okay, we're not very humble because we're just out here already winning the game. You think you're going to win. So why are you like singing your name loudly just for anybody to hear? Would you not want to keep that to yourself until you're sure that you win?
Yeah.
No, he doesn't care. So he's dancing around, singing that outside. And so she hears it and she's like, I'm keeping my baby. Watch this. So she goes back home. He comes in the next day. He's like strutting in. He's like, oh, I'm about to get this baby. Side note, why does he want a baby so bad?
Yeah, I don't
He doesn't
know.
seem like a very fit father. Anyways. So he's like, okay, girl, what's my name? And she's like, oh, what could it be? I'll just make a random guess. Is it Rumpelstiltskin? She's like faking that she doesn't know. And so he goes from 0 to 100. He's pissed. He's like, the devil told you that. The devil told you that. Or in some versions, he says like the witches told you that or something. I don't know. He's like jumping around. He's throwing a little hissy fit. He's getting so mad. Now, in the earliest version of this story, he gets really mad and he runs out. He never comes back. But I think the brothers Grimm were like, no, we really got to make this a finale. You know, this story has just been a masterpiece up until this point, just full of randomness. We gotta sell it home, you know? Yeah. So they updated it, and in the 1857 revised version, he's like, the devil told you that. The devil told you that. And he stomps his right foot into the ground so hard that it sinks him up to his waist. And then he reaches down, he grabs his left foot, and he just tears himself in half. He just rips himself right in half.
Wait,
yeah, Brian's like, because that makes sense. Literally, none of this story makes any sense. Like, what in the world? And so all these different versions of this story, all over Europe, there's just different versions of this story. But in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so the story ends there, but what, in the aftermath of this story, what happens? When he rips himself in half, he just disappear? Are there just two halves of this little man laying on the ground? And then what do they do with him?
Or does he just come back together? I mean, he's magic. He might have just been like, I'm going. See ya.
Yeah, and to that point, like if you're magic, you can take straw and turn it into gold, but you can't take straw and make your own baby.
True.
Well, it's different, and I mean, you can kind of look at it this way too. I mean, that's cool. I mean, I love that version, and the way you told it is like amazing. That was really cool. I like the body language and your energy and the verbiage and stuff. That was like so cool. But you got to look at it. I mean, here's this guy. He's a little guy. Nobody likes him, and no female's attracted to him. He may be a nice guy. I mean, he helped her out. He saved her life. He gave her a life of happiness. I mean, she's going to be queen. All he wanted was a kid of his own. So he couldn't get that because he couldn't attract nobody. So he's like, look, the only way I'm going to get this, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to save your life. I'm going to make you queen. You'll have a life of happiness and luxury. I just want a kid of my own, So, I mean, you got to feel sorry for the guy.
Yeah. And, okay. So let's talk about this ending because I never heard that ending. In all the books I had when I was a little girl, okay, she tells him when she says, his name is Rumpelstiltskin. He gets mad. He does throw a fit, but he jumps up and down so hard that he jumps through he just falls through the floor.
Makes a crater, yeah.
And it wasn't the ground. It was like
just goes straight to hell.
In the palace or whatever. But the funny part for me was always that, and I never realized how random that story is, but the funny part for me was always when he threw the little fit. It just, like Yosemite Sam is what he reminded me of. But in the book I had, in the nursery rhyme book that I had, that I was in the fairy tales, he was ugly, like he was like a little ugly, portly leprechaun kind of,
like a little imp
with warts on his face and all this. So I don't know why I always liked that story. I just thought it.
And I do have a few more things about this story that I do want to point out.
Cool.
And as I was going over picking fairy tales, honestly, it was a little tricky because a lot of them deal with really dark themes like sexual abuse and
Little Red Riding Hood. Ooh.
And undertones like that. And I didn't want to get that dark in this episode. I kind of wanted to keep it a little bit more lighthearted if I could.
Yeah.
But so this, and there's people that study folklore and major in folklore and have all of these different forms. So this is like the Rumpelstiltskin principle of, it derives from an ancient belief that knowing something's name gives you the power over it.
Yes.
So that's known as the Rumpelstiltskin principle because of this folklore.
Huh.
So the lesson that you learn can be interpreted in the form of a woman's tale. So it's kind of a forewarning about what marriage life could be like for a young, uneducated, easily manipulated female. And it's only once she knows his name, or like the masculine knowledge, she gets power over him and she can control her own fate. Now, I also saw a little bit of on this website, and I'll link everything down below, but it was kind of also talking about a double meaning of the story, like this man is coming and visiting her every night and they're making gold, and then she has this baby and he wants this baby that might even be his baby. You don't know. So that was also kind of weird. So it also suggests a shadow animus narrative that's like a coming of age tale. So where the protagonist is trapped. So this girl is kind of trapped until she's able to grow and learn and mature. And then once she does that, she's able to trick him, and then she wins. She can control her own fate. She gets to keep her baby, right? Mm-hmm. There's also a lot of repetitions of threes. Like, it's 3 over 3 nights. The king asks her to spin the gold 3 times. Rumpelstiltskin shows up and gives her 3 chances to guess his name, like over 3 days. There's 3 prizes that he wants in order to help her out. So that's kind of like a repetition of like the Holy Trinity, which was big back in the day, kind of folding that into different stories. But my favorite separate version of this story that I found was, it was similar, but it was called the Three Spinners. And so instead of Rumpelstiltskin showing up, it's the same basic story. Like the miller says, hey, my daughter can do this with straw, blah, blah, blah. The king's like, okay, do this 3 nights. So instead of Rumpelstiltskin, these 3 fairy-like women show up and they save her. But instead of asking for her firstborn child on the final night, they're like, just invite us to your wedding with the king. And she's like, okay, I'll do it. So on her wedding day, they show up with these hideous deformities, right? And they go up to the king and they're like, this is what happens when you spin gold out of straw too much. You just get deformed like this. And he's like, ew, you're never doing that again. He's like, I will never make you spin straw into gold ever again. And so they kind of like, we love girls supporting girls. We love a story like that. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, I like that.
Also, something that I found out that was interesting was that you actually really can't spin straw into anything because it doesn't have the long fibers that are necessary to form thread. Like cotton and flax and wool, you can spin those into something like threads and yarns and whatever because they have those long fibers, but straw doesn't. And it's very feeble. It kind of breaks easily. So her dad really set her up to fail. He could have even said, like, my daughter can spin flax into gold. Like, at least she might have had a chance to make something, but he really set her up to fail because you can't turn straw into anything. It's grass. You can't.
Yeah.
Like,
now, what's the deeper?
Why did her dad do that to her?
Exactly. What's the deeper meaning of that? Like impossibility?
So, I guess kind of what I was thinking is, and what I found on this website is that there's always going to be a steep price for shortcuts. So even if it seems impossible, you should still try. Don't take the easy way out because there's always something. But I found it interesting that Rumpelstiltskin is an imp, which isn't that a type of fae, right?
Yeah.
And we know that fae like taking human babies and keeping them as their own. But I don't understand why he didn't just pop in and take the kid and go. Usually that's what fairies do, right? In those situations, if they're going to take a kid, they take the kid. Like, they're not giving you chances to guess their name, and then you get to keep the baby. Yeah. So that's just what's always been weird to me. Like, if she promised you the baby, then it's yours. So why not just go in and take it and then leave? I mean, you could, if you're popping into the room, pop in and pop out, and you're done.
Maybe he was just a nice guy.
The whole story just... What'd you say, Ryan?
I said maybe he was just a nice guy. Who knows?
Ryan, you've been watching too much of Once Upon a Time.
Hey, I like that show.
I do too.
That show is awesome.
Yes, he is.
I never watched it.
Yeah, it's great.
Funny. It's a different twist. You'll like it.
Now, speaking of like really random fairy tales, another fairy tale, and I didn't get into this one because it just popped into my brain a few minutes ago, but The Emperor's New Clothes.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Where the guy's like, these clothes, they're just so new, you can't see them, but everybody else can see them, so here, put this on. And he just is like,
streaking
out there in front of his whole court, in front of his whole village, just letting everything hang out. And he's like, y'all like my new outfit? And it's just him. It's just all natural.
And everybody's afraid to say. Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, you look so good. Because they don't want to die. These are the fairy tales that I just don't understand. Like, why? Why?
I know,
it's
right?
So random.
There's a lot of random stuff in these fairy tales. Oh, well. I mean, I guess they didn't have TV and the internet and all this stuff to entertain them. They're sitting around thinking of all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish I still had that book so I could show y'all that picture of little Mad Rumpelstiltskin. It's like his face is red and he's stomping and like, you just tell he's so
Because you
mad.
can just see him jumping up and down going,
Yeah.
oh, I can't believe you did that to me.
Exactly.
You win, damn it.
He did it to himself, though. He did it to himself, like you said.
Like, maybe if you really want that baby and you don't want to just pop in and take it, maybe don't say your name in a little song dancing around outside your house. I mean, if you want to do it inside your house, like, that's your business. But you're not inside your house. You're out in the middle of the woods. Having a good time at your fire pit, probably making some s'mores like, oh, I'm about to get a baby tomorrow. Let me put some chocolate on these marshmallows.
But who would dream up a name like Rumpelstiltskin? That is just...
Well, also in German, I think the name
it means something?
that they had translated to little rat stilt, which could also, for some reason, the website that I was reading said it could also have like a phallic meaning behind it.
No. Okay.
There's always one of those in children's stories. I don't know why. Why is that there? It's a children's story.
Y'all, this has been fun. Wow.
And I will say, I know a lot of people listen to this show on Spotify, and that is amazing. But sometimes you might need to check it so you can get some visual effects, because some of the facial expressions and some of the actions during these podcasts.
It's great. Awesome. Yeah, you're missing out if you're not watching on YouTube. Definitely. Lindsay, you can have your own stand-up comedy routine with that story.
No, I don't think that's...
Ryan, do you remember back, I guess it was in the 80s, there was some comedian who would tell backwards fairy tales. Instead of Cinderella, it was Rindercella. And
that's the guy at the Renaissance Festival.
Yes, that's right. That's who it was. And he told the whole story like totally backwards,
like mixed up, but you could understand it.
Yeah, and there's like it was Rindercella and her. What did he call her? Stepsisters. It was just hilarious. It was hilarious, and he didn't miss a beat. We need to find that on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah, we need to link
somebody videoed it.
We need to link that below.
Ken Iverson. Was that him?
Sounds familiar.
What's it say about him?
Hang on. Rindercella, told by Ken Iverson.
That sounds familiar to me.
2013. Yeah. And there's Archie Campbell.
Yeah, Archie Campbell, I think, was the first person I heard that told it on Hee Haw. But this guy did, like, he went way beyond, didn't he, Lindsay? Mm-hmm. I mean, you're sitting there listening, and you're like,
you really have to listen. Like, you can understand it, but you really have to pay attention, or you're not gonna hear it.
It might be Ken Iverson, but we'll try to find it for our listeners because it's worth the listen.
Yeah,
it's great. And he told the Wid Wad Boof, the big bad wolf, and it was just like it was.
There's also a Colonel Stupenagel and a Matthew Goldman. So I'm not sure. There's probably a bunch of them, but
there probably is a bunch of them that kind of do a take on that backwards fairy tales.
Matthew Goldman was one that was on like with Dean Martin and stuff. So I'm not sure, but we'll find them.
Yeah, we'll find it. We'll share it on socials this week. This has been fun. I'm not sure. Like it's been kind of creepy, more lighthearted, which
not
like
as dark as
like that sometimes.
Yeah, we do some singing and dancing and some crazy stuff. You never know what you'll run into here.
You don't. You never know. But we need to do an on-site investigation soon. With school getting out and stuff, we need to find time to do an on-site investigation because we haven't done one since October of last year at the Martha Washington. And we're going to put our heads together and we're going to come up with something really good.
We should do one in the fall and the spring every year.
We should. Well, it's already summer now, but we can do one. Well,
Um,
almost.
Actually, is
Do any of you listeners out there, or readers, listeners, viewers, any of our fellow
Sirens.
sirens out there, do y'all have any places that you think are haunted, maybe even your own, or some weird occurrences or things you've heard we can come check out?
Yeah.
Not to be creepy, but we want to see something, and we want real stuff. So,
Or maybe there's a place nearby, where you live that's, reported to be haunted, or a cemetery, or even, something like that. We would, yeah, we love doing that kind of thing. We bring some equipment. We don't have a lot.
Yeah,
We
a
bring
tape recorder and a cell phone camera.
digital recorder, yeah. But maybe one of these days we'll hit the big time and we'll be able to get us some real ghost hunting material.
We'll see.
Equipment. But anyway, there's a lot of places around us, like within a day's drive, that we could do an on-site investigation. But anyway, we'll put our heads together and we'll come up with something, let you guys know. And in the meantime, we'll be checking our Gmail to see if we have any ideas coming in from our listeners on that, or any stories that you might have, any topic ideas that you might have. I mean, we never thought we would go down the trail of nursery rhymes and fairy tales.
Here we are.
So you never know. See, we can make it creepy. We can make it fun. So if you have those ideas, or you just want to say, hey, you can catch us on our socials, and email us at sirensofthesupernatural@gmail.com. And you see here on the screen, we are Sirens of the Supernatural on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And like Ryan said, catch us on YouTube sometimes. If you've not been used to doing that, you won't be disappointed. And we're on TikTok at Supernatural Sirens. We're growing. Our viewership and people who listen, it's growing. We've got, I think, over 450 followers now on Instagram, which is amazing. So thank you for all the love.
We've more than doubled since the beginning of the year, I think. So that's good.
Yeah. So maybe we're doing something somebody out there likes. We hope. But anyway, we will sign off for this week. Be watching the socials and send us an email. Catch us next week at the same time. Who knows what we'll be bringing your way. Oh, and if you're not listening to Sunday Scaries, wow. I love what Lindsay's doing with the sound effects on that, and the series is creeping me out. Like this morning, I was listening to part 7 and 8 while I was getting ready, and something you did with the sound effects, like where it slams into the door really hard. I went up. Dad said, "Are you okay?"
That's what I was going for. I was like, I think that when Mom listens to this, she's gonna jump at this part. So I'm glad that my mission was accomplished.
You did. You got me.
So basically, we do each episode trying to either scare, creep out, or freak out, or get a reaction out of the other cast member.
Yeah. It's just exactly, Ron, it's just exactly what our dads did, okay, with us when we were growing up.
Right.
So we've turned into them. So anyway, funny. All right, well, guys, have a good week. Listeners, have a great week. And everybody,
remember,
stay
spooky.
Bye.
See y'all.
Bye.